Off top, in the summer of 2010, Peyton Manning was believed to be the best quarterback in NFL history. He had 4 MVPs and was guaranteed $48 million. Sam Bradford was drafted and signed a contract where he was guaranteed $50 million.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.
Welcome to the Domonique Foxworth Show. Yeah, that off top was, it's going to lead into a lot of things that we're going to talk about on the show. But before we get into that, I got to tell on you. You called me in order to complain about lists, which is something that people do. I think Jeremy Fowler did his annual list where he polls front office people and comes out with a quarterback ranking. And every year we get upset about it. And you call me making fun of people who were getting upset about the list, only to then go into your complaints about the list.
I need to admit something right now. I obviously just wanted to talk about the list, but I know that you'll think less of me if I pitch it as, do you want to talk about this list?
Yeah, okay, so we're going to talk about the list. And I think we have...
That's called chess, not checkers.
We have a very interesting and smart show, I think, coming up. But
nutritionally dense.
Before we get to the dense nutrition, I would like us to participate in some good old, fan...
Yeah,
which is like getting angry about the placement of the list.
Or at least this is not random, because the nutritional value we're going to give to you as listeners is we're going to talk about the rookie wage scale and how it started with Sam Bradford. I think you probably picked that up from the off top of him getting the most money, guaranteed money in NFL history when he signed. But yeah, do you want a list? You want to talk some QB lists?
All right, yeah, let's talk some QB lists. What are the things in the list that are offending most people? What are things that offend you? And I think the part that you're most excited about is how do you fix the list?
Okay. So the thing that's gone viral on social media is people complaining about Joe Burrow being ranked ahead of Lamar. Mm-hmm. So the list goes Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. And that's obviously the big 4 quarterbacks in the NFL. And that's ruffled many feathers of people who think that Lamar should not just be 4 or 3, but 2. Jaden Daniels is 5. The other thing that's gotten sort of viral.
Oh, don't just blow by your boy at 5. Your boy's at 5.
Accurately rated. And then the big one is
season.
The big one is Jalen Hurts, where no one knows where he belongs on this list.
I actually think that's probably, there's no place where you can put Jalen Hurts where people would be happy. Like if you put him, I don't know, he has to be in the top 10, right?
I think he should be 6.
And you'd be happy with him at 6. Well, I guess you might be right. Do you think Eagles fans would accept?
Yeah, I do.
So,
I think that's totally fine.
Okay, cool. We nailed that one down. I think though,
but deep down, I think he should be on this.
Yeah,
and
that's the thing. Is I know that you're lying, but I didn't want to put you in this position.
No.
Force you while you're wearing your Eagles green shirt. I didn't want to force you to tell the truth because I actually think that he should be pretty high.
I do too.
Okay.
6 is where he's earned. I don't if it's a career achievement thing, I don't understand why Matthew Stafford's ahead of him on the list at this point, or Justin Herbert's ahead of him on the list at this point. I get it from Herbert's talent. He's below Jared Goff. He's 9th on the list. Right. But what I would say is if you put him at 6, you could sell me on arguments that would the Eagles be just as good with X guy below him on the list? Yeah. And I would say, that's interesting. Let's have a conversation.
The ridiculous thing about the things that upset people in this list is that the top guys, or at least that bunch of 3 behind Mahomes, they're so close.
First ballot Hall of Famers. They're all separated by a hair.
Yeah, and they're so close that you can make a reasonable and respectable argument for any of them, right? And so it's perfect list fodder because... Yeah,
well, there's some funny things about it.
I know.
Which is for years we had the Lamar stands on Twitter who were look at the stats. He's the best guy. And now as you see them with Joe Burrow, after Joe Burrow just racked up all of these stats. I know Lamar's stats were comical last year, but racked up all those stats last year because they were playing from behind. They didn't have a running game. Their defense was trash. And they're do not look at the stats. Look at his impact on the game.
I think what I was trying, what I wanted to get, what I wanted to get.
You want me to say it
before? No, okay. So I'll set you up this way because I we all understand in sports media, and I even think people who consume sports media understand that the point of the list is, frankly, if you're doing a good list, what you're doing is making one thing or multiple things in the list so shocking that it gets people to pay attention, but it's justifiable.
Yeah.
Right? So like that's the perfect list, is that when someone picks it up, they're like, what the hell is this? And it forced them to read it. And then they're like, oh, they may not agree, but they're interested. Mm-hmm. And so you and I think, have come up with the perfect way to actually make this list make sense.
Mahomes should be number 3.
There you go. Proper pause. Now people are shocked and upset, and now you got to justify it.
This is not a list about past performance. First of all, I guess this is a poll. We should say this very clearly. This is not Jeremy Fowler.
Jeremy Fowler is taking a poll of a bunch of anonymous front office people.
Yeah, but
put your name on it.
Yeah, also just like fudge the numbers a little bit. Put Mahomes at number 3.
Come on, Jeremy, fudge it.
It's just that after the last 2 regular seasons, he has not played as good football in the regular season as Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson.
Okay, now I that part is interesting, and I think it's perfect for the list. But you also said that you believe that this list should be titled.
Oh, I'll say this list should be titled "Did your tight end choke in the playoffs?" Which is essentially if Mark Andrews or whichever one of the replaceable tight ends, Kincaid or Dawson Knox, right? dropped those. Yeah, he dropped the Josh Allen pass on the fling Hail Mary type of thing on 4th down, and Mark Andrews sort of sold that Ravens Bills game. If either one of those plays don't happen and that team ends up in the Super Bowl, that quarterback is number 1 on the list.
That's the funny part, because you're absolutely right. It's like if Travis Kelce doesn't have like
his one throwback game of the postseason against the Bills.
Yeah, it's funny because no one would be questioning it if Josh Allen won the MVP and won the Super Bowl, or at least got to the Super Bowl and got past Patrick Mahomes with the 2 regular seasons that Patrick Mahomes has had. No one would be questioning, and the major reason why he did it the main reason why he did not was because that ridiculous 4th down pass was dropped. And what did our guy say? You gotta just simply flip your hips.
Oh yeah, if he had just simply flipped his hips and thrown them onto the flat,
we would have a different list.
My God, Solak, you figured out quarterbacking.
Oh man, we gotta have Ben back on.
100%.
We can't make fun of him and not have him on the show.
It is so funny too. Yeah.
So the funny thing about that, and also the infographic that you were obsessed with the ages of quarterbacks, is I think that
obsessed is strong.
Not obsessed. You're right. Not obsessed with that.
Slightly interested by.
Yeah, you're slightly properly interested by. First of all, you're a sucker for like sports bait. It's like you're also in the industry and like are a smart person. But I think it's like reality TV. It's like people have some level of judgment for people who fall into these kind of debates. But you recognize that they're there and you love them and you want your candy.
Well, I love them. And it's also like your tendency is to hate them, which is even better for me.
Yeah. I hate them because I recognize their purpose. It's like, this is the point of it, Charlie, to get us upset, to get us riled up, and to participate in it. And then we participate in it. But anyway, I think
you're having fun with it.
I am.
More lists.
You're right. You're right. I hate when you force us, or not force us, when you try to convince us to draft something or to make a list, and then inevitably I kind of enjoy it because that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the conversation just more than I enjoyed what we just did. But now let's get to the stuff that makes me happy.
Well, there's some, and there's connections to it, which is we're talking quarterbacks here. We're talking about the fact that in 2010, the NFL really changed the way that they're going to strategically build rosters for the foreseeable future if this continues, which is putting in the rookie wage scale, which is after Sam Bradford's contract. And really, it was not about Sam Bradford, although it is ridiculous that a guy who'd never played a snap in the NFL would have the most guaranteed money in NFL history. Like, can you imagine now, like, we think Patrick Mahomes is on track to be the greatest quarterback of all time if Cam Ward had a contract where he was making more guaranteed money than him?
Yeah, it seems insane.
With everything we know about guaranteed money in the NFL with collusion.
So obviously, there are people here who need to hear you say that it's not about Sam Bradford, but I personally know it's not about Sam Bradford because I was involved in those negotiations, and I remember them going back to well before Sam Bradford was drafted. And like there are several players. Jamarcus Russell comes.
Jamarcus Russell was the real inflection point on it, where he was picked in 2007. He occupied 11.1% of the salary cap on his rookie contract and was holding out and threatening to miss games as the number one overall pick. And it led to people with the number one overall pick, the Dolphins in 2008, with because of the open market for rookies, and Jake Long being the pick there, who they weren't sure was going to be a great left tackle, even though that's also a premium position where you could set the market at. They're like, maybe we actually let this pick expire and pick later in the draft where we can float in whenever and take whoever we want and get them at a steeper discount.
So I was in the negotiations and I was opposed to the rookie wage scale, which I think goes against what people thought that veteran players believed or wanted. It wasn't, I guess I should explain that I recognize that the value of the first round pick, or at least the top, is really just like the top 10 or so of first round picks, had gone down because the cost was so high and teams were not as excited to have those. And so I recognize that was broken.
Yeah. And just to piggyback on that before you continue, we actually saw that lead to an entire strategy of the best dynasty in NFL history. Like the Patriots for years before that traded out of the first round really consistently because of the value of second round picks. They had the chart that showed that second round picks at their cost structure were considerably more valuable than first round picks.
Okay, so back to my explanation for how I could recognize that there was something broken about the top of the draft and still be opposed to changing the pay structure. It was just because fundamentally I don't believe in suppression of salary. And I think that the draft, or at least I thought at the time, the draft itself was the issue and the salary cap itself was the issue. Because if there isn't a draft, then they're a free agent and then you're negotiating based on potential, which honestly, that was the part for me that was stressful. Is like when your leverage is highest is when people believe that your next 4 or 5 years are going to be super valuable. So when is your leverage any higher than when you are entering the league and your potential is no higher? So like that was the part that it was kind of at odds with just my general beliefs, but like it was understandable and it probably ended up distributing the money that was in the league more fairly.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, so this is
amongst players.
Yeah, it's slotted, and like you have a certain salary for a certain spot in the draft, and it goes down as you go down in picks. But I was wondering, that's surprising to me. I would have thought that you would have, even though you're against suppression of salary, you're also defending. When you're in these negotiations, you're defending the entire NFL population, and when you're giving 11% of the cap to guys who have never played professional football, and the bust rate is so incredibly high in the NFL, particularly amongst quarterbacks who really had the most leverage to exert in the rookies scale, that's legitimately taking money out of established players' pockets who earned it from their first contract and like theoretically wanted to cash in. And that's, it's a finite number because of the hard cap.
No, I mean, I recognize that that's the direction that we were going to have to go, but, and it probably was a waste of time, but I spent quite a bit of time arguing that if you have a problem with how much you are paying rookies based on where they are drafted and what position that they played, then don't draft them. Like then we have, and like, of course, it was absurd to imagine that we get to a place where there isn't a draft, or we get to a place where you actually draft the players, or I guess my point in general, and this goes back to some of the shows that we had about the NBA, is I don't like the idea of making tweaks to the CBA that are designed at protecting the owners from themselves.
Yeah.
If you don't want to pay them that money, don't pay them that money. If you don't want to draft them there, don't draft them there. Of course, it's not a hill that we died on, but that's just how I felt.
I was about to say, was it of the things that you were frustrated with when you were negotiating with owners and the league on this? Was this on the higher end or the lower end?
I don't know. I mean, they all pissed me off. Like I was frustrated by anything that was meant to impose some restriction on the guys who were providing the most value and taking the most risk.
Can we sit here for 1 second, by the way, on the value suppression if you don't want to pay the guy type of thing? Because I'm firmly opposed to your no draft in the NBA thing, just because one player choosing can change so much. Like
in the NBA?
Yeah, in the NBA.
Okay.
But in the NFL one, And this is somewhat relevant because this is a path that Caleb Williams looked to skirt around the rookie contract situation. When I guess it's a book coming out this fall, but it's been reported that him and Carl Williams just debated if they wanted to try and force a way to Minnesota, if they wanted to try and get around the rookie wage scale completely over a 2-year span type of thing. Is there a world where that could work in the NFL? Because it's not like I don't think it's like basketball. It's not like everyone's gonna be like, I'm gonna play for the Cowboys. I'm like this type of thing.
I absolutely think there's a world where it can work. I mean, I think, and we've talked about it. If you decide to sit out the season, if you get drafted by a team, you don't sign a contract, you don't want to play for them, you sit out the season, you're then re-entered into the draft, and any team can draft you except for the team that drafted you the previous season.
Which might happen with Shamar Stewart.
Yeah, which might happen with Shamar Stewart, the rush in from, or the edge from A&M. And then you re-enter the draft. I think the reason why it might be tough in the NFL is because of the rookie wage scale.
Mm-hmm.
It's because the big money comes with your second contract and you're postponing your second contract, and careers are so short. Like, I think it's probably more likely for it to happen in the NBA because they have a similar rule where if you go back, you're re-entered into the draft. If you do it twice, you're then a free agent, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's probably more likely to happen in basketball, but I could see it happening in football. And if I were a player, because especially a quarterback, because we recognize how important the surroundings are for the success of quarterbacks, you don't think that as good as Sam Darnold was in Minnesota last year, that it would be worth it for Caleb Williams to spend one more year to then be in a situation, and maybe everything will be better for Caleb Williams now, but to be in a situation with a coach and a receiver that it seems like every quarterback is their best version of themselves there. Like, I trade a year for that. It's like Mahomes getting to go to Kansas City.
I can't believe you're saying that, because that's how I've always felt about this stuff, where it's like, if I don't understand the apprehension of I mean, I do understand the apprehension of going back to school. It's such a violent game. It's also a secure opportunity. I totally get that.
Right. But you don't even have to go back to school.
Yeah, you could say that. But to me, it's like, yeah, I think if there's a way that you can, if you're making your free agency decisions or any decisions, if there's a way to steer it towards your success, that's going to end up paying out long term more than the immediate gains on a.
I'm reluctant to talk about challenging the draft because it's a fact of life.
I know. I just totally derailed us on this.
And I know people don't agree with me and they hate it and whatever. But I think that the best way, before we get back to what we were planning on talking about, I think the best way to think about it is, this may be the most important decision in your career/life, and you're not making it.
Yeah.
So that's the part that's like, aside from the money, aside from everything else, it's the most significant, consequential decision of your life, and someone else is making it for you. So, yeah. The draft is still fun though. Like, I still like to go to wherever the draft is and talk about it. But anyway,
I love the draft. Yeah.
Back to the original thing. So the rookie wage scale brought about Cam Newton the following year getting drafted and getting a much smaller contract and going on to eventually go to the Super Bowl and win an MVP. It also gave us a situation where the Ravens won a Super Bowl with Joe Flacco. The 49ers got to the Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick. And I think the most famous version of this is the Seahawks won a Super Bowl and got to another Super Bowl with Russell Wilson. And then it convinced us of something that I think we all still believe today, but is wrong.
It's right so what you're saying convinced us is that the predominant strategy is that if you can have a quarterback in their rookie contracts, it is the most valuable asset in the NFL, because you're getting performance by the one position that really dictates your success in the sport at such a massively discounted rate, because their percentage of the cap, like Cam Ward we're now 15 years later, is just getting close to the average salary value of Sam Bradford from his deal, which is like, with the rest of NFL inflation, it's clearly being a smaller and smaller percentage of the cap. But so you're saying you think that the theory and the idea that that you need to build around your rookie window is incorrect, your rookie quarterback's window?
Yeah, I think it's incorrect. I think, and maybe I misunderstand the way that people think about it, but I believe that general sports fans believe that that's the predominant, or that should be the predominant strategy in football. I don't think so, because I think what actually happens is, and it might actually hurt you more than it helps you, but the name of the game hasn't changed. If you look at the quarterbacks and the teams that make it to and win Super Bowls from 2000 to 2010, it's the best guys predominantly. Like there's some guys who sneak in there. There's the Trent Dilfer situation with the Ravens. There's some anomalies.
Those are always outliers.
There are some anomalies, but the best guys, even if you go back to conference championships, like I looked at the conference championships, like yes, like Cordell Stewart gets him to a conference championship. Jake Delhomme gets to a Super Bowl. Like this happens over the history of the league, but predominantly the teams that are competitive are the teams who have great quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually, and even back then when you had to pay a lot for your quarterback, still it was worth it if he was great. And so the name of the game has not really changed at that position. I actually think that it could put some teams on like a treadmill of mediocrity.
Yes.
Rather than actually make them great, is because they get a ton of talent around a guy who's good, who's okay. And then the talent makes the guy who's okay be a little bit over okay. And then you're in a situation when his contract comes up, and I'm guilty of this also, where it's like, hey, he's a functional quarterback, pay him. Then you are tied to this quarterback who's a little bit over okay, and maybe he can get you to the playoffs more often than other teams, but you're not looking for what the real difference maker is a great quarterback, and you're kind of hoping to get lucky, which isn't terrible, but you're kind of hoping that at some point we're just going to keep making the playoffs.
Yeah.
And Dak Prescott is the example of this, where Dak Prescott has been great at times, and this team is consistently get to the playoffs. It's the unlucky version of it, but he's never actually won it. And I there are other examples of it where it's like, I mean, I guess Eli Manning is the counterexample where it's like, yeah, they won 2 of them because things broke in their favor. So I actually don't think that the way that the general public thinks about roster construction is right.
Yeah. Well, so look,
or at least team building.
There's part of it that's right, which is like, if you have a great quarterback on an incredibly team friendly deal, that's a massive advantage, and that's your window to be more aggressive. And like, does it always work? No, we saw the Texans last year try to go all in really quickly and do like a quickie build around CJ Stroud because he had been so successful as a rookie, and the team didn't step forward anyway. But it's still like Jaden Daniels' value, like,
yeah,
he's almost untradeable around the league. I don't even know what the price would be for him at this point, because you have him on this cost control deal for several more years. Can I ask you a
question? This is a good question for you. We have a Commanders helmet on set because you are a DC born and raised Commanders fan.
Mm-hmm.
How many first round picks would the Commanders have to receive for you to be okay with trading Jaden Daniels?
I'm glad you've asked this.
You're a maniac. You've already thought about this.
10. Is because I didn't understand. I don't know if there's an NFL rule about this. I didn't understand why they didn't offer 10 first round picks for Patrick Mahomes like 5 years ago. Like, you can have 10, Andy. Just make the call.
I think I reject it.
It's fine, but make the call.
I don't know how many it would have to be that I accept it, but because I reject it, because I would still use half of those first round picks at least to try to find someone as good as, and there'll be first round picks towards the end of the draft because the quarterback that I just gave away is great.
Yeah.
So I don't know that there's a number. I would have to own your whole draft for 20 years.
20.
I don't know. I'm exaggerating, but like, it's gonna be hard because we recognize if I have a guy that I know is great, like if I have a quarterback who's good, sure, I'll give it up. But if I have a guy like Jaden Daniels, what he showed last year, he showed the ability to win MVPs at some point.
Oh yeah,
I'm not giving up an MVP because I'm competitive no matter what. Look at what the MVP caliber quarterbacks are doing. I think you messed up. You gave him away for too cheap.
No, I mean, look, it's just like my theory of being like, if this is, first of all, this is not helping our discussion, where there are certain things where I'm like, I don't understand why GMs don't do that. I don't understand. Like, is it just because like you become a joke if you call Brett Veach and you're like, how about 10 for Patrick?
I mean, yeah.
You just get laughed at around the rest of the league?
Brett Veach calls all the other GMs and like, hey, this maniac. Actually, I don't know what part of that they would think was stupider, offering it or calling to make the offer, or Brett Veach considering it.
That's like
I wouldn't consider it.
And just be like, hey, like everyone has a price.
I just think that the thing the point I want, before we get deeper into the way that this has in fact impacted everything, the point that I wanted to make clear is that there are some like misconceptions about roster management. And I think one of them was in the past, like if your quarterback made like 13 to 15% of your salary cap, you can't win a Super Bowl. I always felt like that was a stupid rule that was just used to try to suppress the negotiations for quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And I think that this falls into that category, but it's not for the reason of suppression. It's just because we were kind of dumb and we saw it happen and we saw teams get competitive out of nowhere because of it. But I don't think that I guess the point is it was a little bit shocking to me because it bucked against I knew it not to be true, but it bucked against one of the things that I always say is like, pay them. Is when you have a quarterback who's good, pay them because they're so hard to find. And it feels like that maybe you should continue to look for a great quarterback.
I was about to say, this is where we've always been contentious on this, and this is where the rookie wage scale stuff makes so
right.
No, it's not. I don't think I'm right. I think it just requires people to be like
children and dumb people. Never
that.
Get it.
Definitely, and like there are trade-offs with both these strategies. And I'm not just saying that because I know that's one of the things you're most interested in. It's just that because the concept of building in your rookie window has become so proliferated in the NFL. One of the things I think is so interesting is that window of a build actually usually extends into the second contract if someone is competent enough to get there, where you're getting paid at top of the league value. And GMs and coaches are so invested in that being a success because they built their entire thing around, hey, we needed to be aggressive in this rookie window. Now we have this guy on a secondary window, and it goes from being a 5-year build to a 9-year thing. Right. And that's where you talked about the infographic where I got so into it. There was a CBS Sports put out this infographic about the starting quarterbacks in the NFL. And I shouldn't be surprised, but there are only 4 entrenched starters over 31 years old. And it's like, to me, it was like, what's that saying? Is it about the upcoming talent in the position, 7-on-7s, the way the quarterbacking has changed, all these young guys? And it's like, no, it's just that like now the value is if you can find your guy, extend him early and build over even the second contract, that's seen as like the safest path to being like not a joke and being successful. And like, look, it's not wrong. Like the Eagles did it with Jalen Hurts. We thought they were going to win in his rookie window. They just won after they paid him.
Right. And I mean, that may be a whole nother episode in itself, is like, how hard is the NFL cap really? Because teams like the Eagles have found ways, and I guess the Saints are
the opposite.
The opposite, but the Saints also found ways to manipulate the cap in surprising ways, but it's come to a point where it bit them eventually. But I think that's a whole nother conversation. But I think your point about the roster construction is right, or excuse me, not about roster construction, about the quarterbacks is right. But I think there's just such it's hard to draw anything from activity around quarterbacks because it's only 32 of them.
Totally.
And if you have a couple really good drafts, then the supply and demand for the position is shifted for like 15 years.
I was about to say, like, if what we think about last year's draft is, I'm assuming that I'm going to assume that we're going to have the big 4 at the top of the league with near there for several years. And that group last year, it looks like there's going to be 6 legitimate starting quarterbacks for a decade plus from that group. Obviously, injuries happen, but we're just assuming that they're going to be around because they're all really good, really early, and very precocious. Then that graphic in 8 years looks completely different. We're like, wow, look how old the starting quarterbacks are. Look at this is the Brady influence. They can play forever. To me, I just thought it was interesting that it's just like if it actually follows the trend of what we see, where it's like you're pretty good, you get extended, and then that just becomes like you get what you pay for, and those guys are the quarterbacks in the league. And I'm glad you're considering this, because do you think teams are too precious when they have someone who's pretty good, being like, we don't want to take risk and find the next guy?
Yeah, I feel like a hypocrite saying yes, because I'm always the one that's like, I thought the Browns should have paid Baker Mayfield, and that maybe you could argue based on how he's played in Tampa Bay that maybe they should have, but I don't think Baker Mayfield is the type of quarterback like these guys at the top of the league that to quote Joe Burrow, is my window is as long as I'm here. Like I think some of those guys do exist, and I don't think Baker Mayfield is at that level. So I guess the suggestion based on the research that we were doing is that maybe you should not, like, if your guy's just good, then you should trade him, right? It's like you should trade him when it's time to pay him and keep looking until you find someone great. But then it speaks to like the timetables of the people. This is, I guess, what we would say if you're a team owner, because you're going to be there forever. If you're a GM, it might behoove you to say, all right, we're going to keep this guy who's just good and hope that we have one of those magical seasons and end up winning a championship. I think we looked at it before, and it was like every 10 years, there's like one guy who's not great to win a Super Bowl.
So that's what's so interesting about it. And I swear, I'm just saying this from like the pure, like, I want to gawk and would have loved to see how it have gone. I would have thought it was so fascinating if either the Eagles or the 49ers had been like, this trend is stupid. Like, I can extract value from this again. I can do this again. I know Jalen Hurts is only a second round pick, and he's now won a Super Bowl, and he's been like lights out in the postseason of the Super Bowl in a way that's like completely deserves everyone's respect. But we have so much faith in Howie Roseman and then the John Lynch and Shanahan stuff in Philadelphia and San Francisco, respectively, that I would thought it would have been a fascinating experiment if they had been like, actually, we can do this again. We're going to find a guy in a later round who's at an even more severe discount, and we can put it in because we were able to build the infrastructure by having that available cap space in such a better way than other teams that we can still win that way.
So I think the Vikings are doing that.
Yeah.
And I think both the 49ers and the Eagles have already done it. One by choice and one by
accident.
It's like the 49ers rebuilt it around what they thought was going to be Trey Lance because of the Garoppolo injuries and just underachievement. And they ended up rebuilding it around Purdy, who was Mr. Irrelevant, as we all know. And, of course, the Eagles signed Wentz and moved on from him and built it around a second-round pick. I think another team that deserves to be put in this conversation is the Rams, which I guess that's another model that we've seen work with the Rams and the Bucks, where go get a really talented older guy. It's like you build up the team, because the Rams signed Jared Goff and were committed to him and then decided to trade him and move on.
It wasn't just that Stafford became available. He had had that down year, and they had lost faith in him. So there was one thing where he actually went below what they thought they were getting, and they wanted to, because they had to attach a pick to get off of Goff. I think the Vikings one is interesting for a second.
Right. I mean, the Vikings one is not the exact same thing because they didn't draft Darnold, but they had a quarterback who was producing on a small contract. And when it was time to pay him, maybe you could argue that they were going to pay him if he didn't end the season as poorly as he did. But when it was time to pay him, they said no, and they already had a rookie.
That's where I think it's interesting.
Where they were already kind of committed to exploring this rookie thing.
It's just really what I find fascinating about that is because they have a very forward-facing GM, because they have Kevin O'Connell, who is like maybe the best coach you up guy for your quarterback in the NFL right now. I mean, that's a tough list because of McVay and Shanahan and Andy Reid, of course. But he's in that conversation. It just makes me wonder if JJ McCarthy develops a slower rate and he's already burned 1 year of his rookie contract, if they get to the end of that and they're the team to test it in a certain way, being like, let's look at this differently, which is totally unfair for me to speculate before JJ McCarthy plays a regular season down in the NFL. He could be incredible.
He didn't like suggest that he's going to do something illegal. You speculated about something that's actually pretty common. A first round draft quarterback doesn't pan out. Like it's, and it, I mean, well, to your point is he could pan out.
He pans out and they do it anyway.
But he's not great.
Yeah.
Right. Which would be, it would have to be a situation where the GM and the head coach had some level of security that most GMs and head coaches don't have.
And to your point about this, where the stuff gets interesting is like, I think you and I both think that Dak Prescott's a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield. He's making twice as much money as him this year.
Yeah.
And that's where the the paying your guy after that rookie window becomes like your build, is when things like that happen. Which is not to say he's not earned it. Of course he's earned it. It's just that changes the way that you build the rest of your team.
And that's also a result of the Cowboys being really confusingly bad about contract extensions. It's like waiting till but that's another detour for another show.
So I want to say this. So like, do you think so this rookie wage scale has become such a big part about how we as fans digest windows and we start thinking about stuff. Do you think that who do you think it benefited and hurt the most?
I mean, I think it definitely benefited the proven veterans in the league because it's inevitable that if the top 10 guys are getting a bunch of money, that some of them are not going to live up to the contract, and there will be people who replace them who the teams would use that roster constraint as a reason not to pay them. So like I think it certainly benefits those guys. I think it benefits fans to some degree because you and your team, fans and owners, you're not committed to this player who's not going to produce for an extended period of time. So, but for fans, I think it puts you back in this cycle of hope, which is nice. It's fun. It's better than being like, our guy stinks, but we're paying him 15% of our cap or 11% of our cap, and we're going to be stuck with him for at least the next 5 to 7 years. So I think that's been beneficial. It's probably benefited. So net, it has not benefited draft eligible quarterbacks, but I think it's probably pushed a lot of quarterbacks up the draft.
That's the way to put it.
Yeah. I think that when you are getting, if this never happened, then Cam Ward would have gotten a contract close to Dak Prescott coming into the league. So, and all that money would have gone to him. So there's less money going to quarterbacks coming in, but I think that there are more quarterbacks being drafted and pushed up higher than they would have been before. So the guys who would have been at the end of the first round or in the second round or third round are now getting pushed into the first round. And those guys are getting more money, but net, they're not going to get $70 million guaranteed, which is what Cam Ward might have gotten.
I genuinely think that like in the rookie scale era, unless there's a complete outlier, it's like, it doesn't make any sense to not take a quarterback first overall in every single draft.
Yeah.
Just because I know we've done counterexamples about how that's not totally right, but it's like, if you do get it right, the value if it's completely off the charts.
But actually, I mean, this is where we get into the conversation about running back value a little bit, because I'm not sure I disagree with you, because a mediocre quarterback is probably more impactful to your team success than a good player at any other position on the field, especially if it's not like a high impact position. I guess we start talking about if you draft a great player, like you draft a future Hall of Famer, he might be, but actually, I don't know. Like a serviceable quarterback will lift your team probably even more than like Von Miller on a rookie deal, which is like the best version of a rookie that comes to my mind immediately. I don't know.
Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah. Myles Garrett. I mean, they won that Super Bowl. That Von Miller was the rookie quarterback on that team. They won that Super Bowl in part because they had a Hall of Famer on a rookie deal, and that defense was incredible, and their Hall of Famer who was playing quarterback wasn't quite getting the job done. But I think the value is so high that if you could guarantee me, and I don't have a quarterback, you can guarantee me that this guy is going to be mediocre, which sends us back to the situation that we were in before.
Yeah. I mean, so do you think that this is, for draft capital and disparity, do you think it's widened the gap between premium positions and non-premium positions? I'm talking about like,
absolutely.
Quarterback,
at the top
tackle,
of the draft,
edge rusher, essentially. Those are the big three I think of. Yeah,
because I mean, the value is, I mean, I would define it in an equation in general as like, what is something worth versus what you're paying for it. And so that's to your point, like the more premium. And that's why I would say that a quarterback might be more valuable than any other position at that spot, is because what a mediocre quarterback costs is so much bigger a gap between them and what you're paying them than any other position. But yeah, it makes that position, it makes the most valuable positions more important to draft that high. So I guess corners and left tackles and edges are also getting pushed up the draft a little bit artificially because that value is so, and running backs are not.
Yeah.
They're not getting pushed up because
running backs, interior linebackers, interior linemen.
Because what you're going to pay, or if you drafted
Safeties.
a running back in the top 5, you're going to pay him the same amount that you would pay a high, or close to the same amount as you would pay a high value free agent running back.
No, it's like, I mean, Saquon sort of changed it this offseason, but before that it was like roughly the same.
Yeah.
And same with tight end, which is like that was one of the big arguments about drafting Brock Bowers higher, where it's like, he better be Travis Kelce because you're immediately paying him like Travis Kelce. And it turns out he was, but like,
it's a little bit more risky.
I want to come off of this. Do you think the rookie wage scale worked?
Again, and the question is like, it's so broad, and you're good at this because the broad question forces me, or it allows me to go anywhere I want. I'd say overall, yeah. I think it did work. Yes, it worked.
I'm not gonna lie, like I agree with that. Like the drafts make more sense to me this way too.
I think the reason why it worked most of all is because we were getting to a point where the highest picks weren't most valuable, and that's not great. And
yeah, if you have teams not wanting to make the pick.
Yeah, the Dolphins wanted to, or considered not drafting anybody and letting the time run out. But I will say there always are unintended consequences.
Yes.
And I'd say that while overall it probably worked for most teams, I think the unintended consequence is that it's created an environment where tanking is more attractive than it has ever been. And I still don't think NFL teams are like actively trying to lose, but I know fans of teams.
And I think some ownerships are.
Yeah.
Even if the teams aren't.
Yeah. And I know, so I hate anything that creates that incentive that you are at odds with your players and your team. And I think that that's it. You want your team, if you want your team to lose, that's not, something's wrong with the system. If you are a fan of a team and you're upset about or stressed about the decision that you're going to have to make about your quarterback, something about the system is wrong. Like, I don't like the idea that there are split fan bases that are like, but you got to consider the value. Like, that to me feels like not sports to me.
There's way more pocket watching on this, but I think that's just across sports in a certain way, which I think is really interesting. Is like, everyone's like a capologist now, being like, is he worth it? Is he like, there's less just enjoyment of it. Like, you have that brief window when someone is your guy and he's up and coming and it feels limitless. But once you see that limit, you start immediately entering that state of, well, is he worth this? Is he really the guy? And to your point from earlier about like the capital needed to trade for one of those guys, when you have one, you don't even think about it. Like, I'm not that serious. It's like I guarantee you there's not a single Chiefs fan that batted an eye at Patrick Mahomes getting his 10-year, $501 million contract, which, by the way, turned out to be incredibly team friendly. They've renegotiated it 5 times. We're able to open up almost $50 million of cap space this year with their renegotiation of it. But to me, I do think that's one of the unintended consequences of what's happened with quarterbacks and edge rushers and stuff, where it inherently, that second contract now is putting them at odds with the fans.
And I guess that's what it comes back to, about there is no number that's too big in order to have a great quarterback.
I'd give Jaden Daniels everything in my pocket.
It's not
just on top of whatever $500 million. Take some more, sir.
Yeah, I mean, you don't carry any cash.
No, I'd Venmo him.
And that's there's no wrong answer to that. So, and I also think that and I guess your quarterback has to be great for you to be in this position. And again, I guess I'm reiterating this, is that this may be before we get to football season. Maybe we spend one of these days talking about different cap mechanisms that teams can use. Because if you know your quarterback is your guy, his contract shouldn't be a hindrance for you, because you can continue to restructure it and move the ginormous cap hit into the future. Where it becomes an issue is when he falls off a cliff. It's like, all right, well, we don't want to restructure it because that would commit us to him longer. But like all the time we spend arguing about whether you should pay this guy or not, it's ridiculous. Like, if you're going to pay him
as soon as possible for as long as possible.
Yes. And then you put the cap hit number deeper into the contract, and then you extend it, guarantee more of it, and stretch that out over the next so often. It's like, it's not a problem.
Can I ask a question on that? I have a question to ask you off this. I don't need permission on this one. Where it's like we've seen in the NBA people who can over leverage teams by signing 1-on-1s like LeBron, and LeBron's obviously really unique about this. But in football, there's such a temptation to take as long as deal as much money as possible as put right in front of you because of how violent the game is. But then you see guys like Dak Prescott and Kirk Cousins who have been able to maximize their earnings for different ways, but from the same mechanism, which is that they were, in Cousins' case, forced to wait. In Dak's case, it was probably because of Jerry Jones's
propensity for entertainment.
Yeah, I was going to say incompetence, but yours was much kinder. Where they were able to leverage short-term deals into a comical amount of guaranteed money and maximize their earnings over time. Do you think there's a world where that, quarterbacks, they don't get hit the way they used to? There are certain things that are less physical about it, but there's still, borderline 100% injury rate for every NFL player, where there's a world where quarterbacks could bet on themselves with more short-term deals? Because if not, then it doesn't make sense for anyone not to try and follow the Mahomes model of locking someone in for a decade once you think you have a great player.
Yeah, the quarterbacks, I don't see them trying to do those. There's no incentive, and this is like, there are things about the CBA that I think are kind of silly and foolish and should change and have unintended consequences. But this is not one of them, because it incentivizes the quarterbacks to also sign the long-term deal.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and this is the risk of the franchise tag, is the franchise tag is not something that you can spread out over the course of a long time. And so if you're a quarterback, and us understanding, which we harp on all the time, how important the situation is around the quarterback, if you're a quarterback and you're in a good situation, doing a 1-year deal in order to maximize your leverage actually does impact the amount of cap space that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Doing a 5-year deal and stretching it out over that, like, it's a much smaller impact on the cap, on the salary cap. And it allows you, if you trust the guys, that's the thing, because basketball players, an individual basketball player who's great has so much more impact, then they're like, nah, I'll take this elsewhere. And there's a higher chance to make it have success. If I'm a quarterback who started his career somewhere and things are working out pretty well, I don't trust that if I go somewhere else, it's going to work out nearly as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what did we learn today? What was your big takeaway? What did we learn looking back at the rookie wage scale, how it's bumped people up the draft, it's changed team behavior? What do you think we learned?
I think the biggest takeaway is where we started, honestly. Not to suggest that the journey wasn't as fun and interesting as it was, but it's that the key to winning a Super Bowl is the same as it's kind of always been in modern football, like since the introduction of free agency. Get a great quarterback. It don't matter how you get him. It don't matter how much you pay him. Get him. And anything else that you think is going to win you a Super Bowl, it's a lot more luck that you're hoping to have happen, and you're less likely to get it done, which is, it's no new revelation. I don't know that there's a CBA mechanism that you can put into place that would change that.
Yeah. I guess mine is don't settle for the mid.
All right. Much better way to end it. All right. Appreciate you, Charlie. Thank you. Thanks to all the great producers. I love you, Podville. We out.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.